So we're going to talk today about some freshwater adventures. This is a shot from the Green River in Utah. Oh, jeepers. There we go. So I think you all know me. I can skip the introduction, I think, for everybody on the call. But yeah, so like a lot of other Dubois, I consider myself a naturalist of sorts, and interested in, those connections between humans and nature. And for those who don't know, so I've been living in Jasper National Park and working for Parks Canada for probably about 16 or 17 years, and that's where we're based. And my co-presenter today is Shawn. He did quite a bit of work on this as well. So we're going to do a little bit of tag teaming. So this is Shawn, my husband, and yeah, he's been just recently retired from Parks Canada, but been here for about 25 years, I think, in Jasper, 2025. Again, this is a shot from the Green River in Utah, and we just thought we'd sort of set the context for this little presentation. And this is a quote from Henry David Thoreau. So wherever there's a channel for water, there's a road for the canoe. This is one of our philosophies. So what are we here for today? Well, we're going to share some stories and some scenery. We're going to celebrate family and friends, and maybe we're going to learn something new. So I just thought I'd sort of set the context that, we think canoeing can be for everybody, or not. This is a couple of pictures of Avon when she was, our daughter Avon, who's now 11. And this is probably when she was about 9 months. She spent a lot of time with us in the canoe. And this is on Athabasca River, which runs through Jasper. And then, yeah, our second daughter, Haley, came along, and she too was a canoe enthusiast. This is a picture at the top left corner. There is when we were getting ready for her first canoe trip. And then the pictures on the right are from Myrtle Lake, various years in Myrtle Lake. And I think the message here is just, I don't think anyone on the call here has really young children, but for those who, might look again later on, it can really be it can be for everybody. It's a really easy way to travel with kids. And then even for some sort of reluctant adventurers, my mom's been on a couple of great canoe trips, a few actually, and my dad. And then this is a shot of Jason and Jess on the Red Deer River from 2005. We also think it's a great way to connect with friends. This is a group of two other families that we've done numerous canoe trips with over the years. This is a group that Shawn has been traveling with for sort of over 30 years. They try to get together every year and do a canoe trip somewhere. Again, sort of on that connecting with friends theme, this is a little tributary of the Athabasca River. It's the Mayette, and I think it was last September, not this past September, but the September before, it was a 30-degree day, and we thought we would load up the kids in this raft, and the mums and I got on our paddle boards, and we tried out this little tributary. So it's I think a really fun, easy way to, get a little bit of adventure and see a place that we know really well, but from a different perspective. We think it's also for those who like a challenge. This is Myrtle Lake, and Myrtle Lake's in Monterey Provincial Park in British Columbia. One of the things we love about Myrtle Lake is there's this 2.5 kilometer portage, and so it's a really good filter. There's no motorboats on the lake, and you get it's amazing lake, great fishing, beautiful beaches. But there's a bit of a haul. So this is us. With they provide at the parking lot these large sort of canoe carts, and you can load them up with all your gear, and then you've got this 2.5 kilometer portage. But it's also a good sort of thing for people who just want to chill out. This is kind of, we often, when we're doing these river trips, it's an opportunity to kind of raft up side by side, crack a beer if you're a beer drinker. swig some water and just kind of let the river take you along. So it's a really super relaxing way, or it can be a super relaxing way to travel. So relaxing, in fact, that sometimes it's hard to stay awake, but luckily we're not relying on these folks for paddle power. This is Avon, and there's Haley. They've both managed to stay awake for most of our trips now, but in the day it was always a bit of a challenge, eh? Yeah, we also think it's for nature lovers, so lots of us here on the call would consider themselves in that group. These are some of the flowers that we often see along the Athabasca. And this is cactus from southern Alberta. This one might even be from the Utah. So this is our first pop quiz. Oh, Astrid's got her hand up.
No.
Nope, okay. You got your hand in there. That's okay. Wow, you are so on that pop quiz. I love it.
Is it Avon?
So the pop quiz is name of this flower. It's a relative of fireweed. We'll just zoom in. Any takers?
Yeah, I know, but I don't know the name.
Oh, it's the gosh, I know it.
Oh,
No.
Daniel's got his hand up.
I mean, if Paul and Elvira didn't it said I know but I don't know the name, then it can't be Avon. But I was thinking maybe it would be that Avon's named after.
Okay, Dad, you can take it if you want.
Yeah, no, I don't know the name of it, but I know it does grow on sort of alluvial bars and that along the water. It looks a lot like fireweed. It's shorter,
The question is,
I can describe a photo too. I think it's purple, has about 4 things poking out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's my long way of saying I don't know.
Okay. Well, it's called River Beauty, and it's gorgeous, and we see it along those alluvial fans.
If Uncle Paul, you would have nailed that if you just kept going and describing it.
We got there eventually. Hey, we just would have given it to him. This is a shot along the Red Deer River. Great place for birding, especially in the spring. And this is Shawn, a couple of friends of Shawn's. They went and did a trip this May. What was the highlight for birding, Shawn?
Yeah, good question. I think more this photo is from last fall, and I think the highlight there were 2 things. There were mountain bluebirds staging, which I had never seen in that number, like big flocks of 50 to 100, several of those, and sandhill cranes every day, every night. Big flocks of sandhill cranes going over, and actually a couple nighthawks as well. And nighthawks are becoming increasingly scarce on the river. And May's a little early, but there were a few nighthawks out, which was a real treat.
Okay. Here's some other stuff that you can see. I believe this is a bull snake, eh? Is it a bull snake?
Yep.
Okay. Pacific tree frog, some pelicans. We often see antelope, depending on where you are in southern Alberta. And then I don't know what this bug is. It makes me think of a June bug, but anyway, all kinds of interesting creatures that you can come across along the river. Feel sort of sorry for this guy. He's so sand covered, and he's probably been handled a lot. So we just thought we would give you some kind of go through a couple of different trips and some details. So this is Myrtle. I've mentioned that before. Is anybody here on the call? Barb, have you guys done Myrtle Lake?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. You should put it on your list.
Yeah.
It's a ways, of course, but because it's relatively, you access it from Blue River.
You'd likely remember. Yeah.
I did Myrtle Lake, and we also hiked up that trail to Wave Crest Park there. It's just
yes. I think I
stunning.
saw your photos. If I remember
it's
correctly.
amazing. Beautiful.
Beautiful spot. Yeah. So anyway, it's a nice sort of L-shaped lake, and lots of good spots along the way. So this is just some shots of the access, that portage, that 2.5K. Fun if you get to ride in the canoe, a little less fun if you've got to actually push the cart yourself. This is one of the trips we did quite a few years ago now, and my mom and dad joined us on that. And these white sandy beaches, beautiful clear water. It looks a bit like a tropical vacation, but it's super critical that you don't run out of s'mores, because this is what can happen. It's pretty scary. So little tip for those who are planning their trips: always pack lots of s'mores. Moline Lake, this is close to where we are. It's about 45 minutes from our house. It's in Jasper National Park. It's one of these sort of iconic places to visit. We tend to go there. We try to get there every year if we can get a reservation. There's 3 campsites on the lake. The lake's
4.
about 3. There's about three spots you can camp. 3 spots. Yeah. There's okay. The lake is about 30 kilometers long, and the first, guys, it's so hard to hear. The first spot is Hidden Cove, which is about 5 kilometers down the lake. And that tends to be where we go, where there are 4 spots. This is further down the lake at Fisherman's Bay, the next campsite. This is back at Hidden Cove, the first spot when Parks Canada just put this in about, I don't know, 8 years ago. So it was a new campground on the lake. And we got to go there first and just sort of try it out, see what worked and what didn't before it was open to the public. So a friend of mine from Victoria came up with his friends, or his kids rather, and he's an avid fisherman, and he'd caught this nice rainbow trout. So we were just checking out what's in the guts. This year, Mom and Dad, Paul and Elvira and Rhonda came out in July for a trip to fish to Hidden Cove on Moline Lake, but unfortunately it was really, really smoky. So still pretty scenic place, but it was kind of a smoky year. So this is a picture from that trip. And another shot as we're heading into the campground. And this is a couple other friends joined us, and this is just our shot from the dock as we were heading back home. So it's a great spot because it's only about what does it take us? 30 minutes to paddle in. So it's a really, really nice spot with low, high reward for low effort. The next place we were going to chat about is the Red Deer, and Shawn will take this one, but it's a river we've done numerous times in southern Alberta. It's part of the South Saskatchewan River Basin. You want to?
Sure. So what's the attraction? We're trying to think for family interest. We'll try to build a little more content than just sort of our family adventures, but sort of what motivates us, what's of interest. So with the Red Deer, obviously extensive badlands, enjoyable from a scenery perspective and awesome for hiking. It's relatively remote. This part of southern Alberta is sparsely settled. I think agriculture was experimented with sort of in the 1914 to 1930s, but with the dirty 30s and drought, proved largely unsuccessful. So it's mostly large ranches in the area now, native grasslands or recovering grasslands. Really spectacular for wildlife and birding, and every trip brings new things to see that way. Sandy beaches is a big attraction. We'll touch briefly on the South Saskatchewan River a little later on, which is more cobbly beaches. So we particularly enjoy the sandy beaches for camping or just stopping over during the day. Cottonwood stands that are full of life, full of songbirds. Just about every stand seems to have an owl hooting at night. World-renowned fossil beds. Part of the route we often go through is part of Dinosaur Provincial Park, and it's a World Heritage Site. And there's multiple trip options, as Jen mentioned. You can go way upstream toward the town of Red Deer, or around the community of Drumheller, or further south, which is where we've done most of our trips. And with this shot, you can see a bone or bones eroding right out of the badlands. It's pretty fascinating from that perspective. There we go. When we were putting together shots from this trip, I was thinking about the many trips we've done with family and friends and how much fun it's been. And looking at one of the more recent ones with my niece and nephew, we've literally enjoyed trips with them from diapers. There's Abby's shots are along the top and Mason along the bottom, literally from diapers to young adults. And that's been really fun and rewarding from a family perspective. One of the memorable trips, of course, was Jen's 30th birthday trip in 2005. And we should probably skip through that slide really quick so no one's doing the math to figure out how old Jen is now.
Yeah.
But the trip coordinates from that time were, I think we did 6 days, 144 kilometers. Dorothy to Jenner, that's probably not too meaningful without a map. We did it in late July, and time of year you do it has a lot of nuance in this trip, whether you do it spring, high summer, or in the fall. And one of the things with July and early August is it's peak bug season. If it's a drought year, there's very few bugs. If it's a wet year, bugs are really intense. And summer storms, violent summer storms are kind of a frequent occurrence in southern Alberta. They're just enjoying the beach with the group, I think. I'm assuming we tied up all our boats at the end of the night, so this might have been a day stop or before we, well, there's a tent there, so we're not fully unpacked.
We didn't tie up our boats yet. But that's
Remains to be done. It's cocktail hour, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think a classic shot type of experience on the red deer. So it's that trip was very warm. I probably in the mid 30s, super buggy. And it's one of the things I always find interesting on these trips is you sort of start off and it's a bit kind of, ooh, you think, oh, who you definitely don't want to swim in that river, right? You're going by all kinds of ranches. There's always lots of cows along the river, lots of dung. And you think, it's really sandy and mucky, but it's amazing how quickly you transition from that to like full on bathing, and you just spend as much time as you can in the water. So this is where you basically, Rhonda and I are making our way upstream, and then you plunk down and you float along, let the current push you. So it's sort of a classic experience.
You don't want to suck in a bit of river water if you can avoid it for the reasons Jen mentioned, including herbicides. But interestingly, the water quality is not necessarily terrible because, and there's been a lot of studies on it, but there's so much clay particles in the water that they take up and tie up a lot of those incoming things. But all the same, you got to be careful with the water.
And there's just another shot of swimming. Okay, second pop quiz, and Rhonda and Dad can't answer this one, but this was during during the 2005 family trip. What device did Rhonda deploy to combat biting insects? You got to think a little outside the box here, but any ideas?
I'll give you a hint. They laughed at me a lot for bringing it. But
we did. We laughed at her a lot. Yeah.
And then we all wanted to play with it.
Yeah.
Dad, what did you say?
Here it is. Here it is, an electric bat zapper. Yeah. So
I went through 2 sets of batteries on that trip.
Hasn't been widely deployed since, but we have wondered if we couldn't put it to, I think it's got some potential there when you get into your tent and you just kind of clean out all the mosquitoes for a decent sleep. I think that's where that device might really shine. Oh, we're back to another pop quiz. So again, for prairie silty rivers, how much drinking water do you bring per person per day? And this applies to everybody except my dad, who's a water denier.
He just drinks wine.
What's that, sorry?
He just drinks wine. He doesn't need any water.
Just drinks wine.
I guess A, only 2.5 liters.
Isn't
Wow.
liters in 1 gallon the same?
Lori
They are.
says 2.5.
Yeah. So we usually do the 4 liters, right?
Wow.
Or as much as you have room for, because that's your cooking, maybe your bit of dishwashing, drinking, and again, sometimes these trips are up to 40 degrees. I'll let you go back.
So at 4 liters a day, how many pee stops do you have to make?
Oh, many.
You sweat most of it off.
Yeah, I'll bet.
This is just a shot of the terrain, and a reminder for me to mention, on these trips, we often plan to do as much or more hiking as we do paddling, because the terrain is so interesting, lots to do. Just at the base of this base central part of this photo is a little wet patch there. That one may or may not be quicksand, but there's quicksand
Cool.
in the Badlands, which can be quite surprising. A friend of mine, on a May trip, walked across something that looked very innocent. It didn't look like standing water like this one, and he plunged pretty much right up to his crotch and had a bit of a time getting out. So quicksand is just one of those things you find in the Badlands with the nature of the silt. One of the highlights, of course, is looking for fossils. This area's got prime exposures of the late Cretaceous, and it's a relatively small window. It's about 3 million years of the, or less, of the upper Cretaceous, which is about 75 million years ago. So it's about 10 million years before the dinosaurs winked out. And this area, through Dinosaur Park in particular, is again, world-renowned fossil beds for everything from fish to amphibians to small mammals, marsupials, right up through duckbills and horned dinosaurs to large tyrannosaurs. So it's a fascinating place to just study the ground. It's just a debris field of an ecosystem long ago.
Oh, I think this is another pop quiz. Okay. Okay.
Oh.
This one, I think Daniel and Lucy, you got a chance here, because I think we did this at when you came to visit. But how do you tell if it's a dinosaur bone? And then I'm putting you guys on the spot here. And if not, Haley's got her hand up. She wants to.
You taste it.
jump in. What's that?
But you taste
Oh, Gord,
it.
no, Gord wants to. Gord, let's give it to Gord.
You take a bite of the marrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, that was my guess.
No, we should have done a demonstration, but basically you do, what do you do? Want to tell it, Haley, and come lean in so that you're by the camera. Lean in.
Just 1 minute here. I don't think it
Oh,
would work. I don't think it would work with this bone.
Well, it's actually pretty small. It will work.
Okay.
It'll work.
Yeah.
Okay, lean in and tell.
You lick your finger and stick it on. If it sticks, it's a bone.
Yeah, it's the good old lick and stick. So yeah, you lick your finger, you stick it on the bone, and if it sort of sticks, you can often pick up the bone with it. Or if you sort of get that real sticky, tacky feeling, you know it's a dinosaur bone.
Hey, why is that? Is it can't be porous after millions of years still?
Yeah, you know, I knew you were going to ask that. I thought of that the other day. I thought, geez, I should be prepared for that why question. And I don't know what's the answer. I forgot to get prepared for it.
Yeah, I've never heard it explained, Jeff. We learned that on our very first trip in 2000. We stopped and went on a hike with the naturalists at Dinosaur Park, and we thought, this is just awesome. This is a course on what to look for the rest of our trip. They told us that it works. And it doesn't work with anything else. Like we find old cow bones, deer bones, bison bones that, you know, even have a layer of silt or clay on them, but they just don't stick the way even a clean dinosaur bone does. It's just got
What a cool way to identify them, and how easy.
Yeah,
That's really neat.
Yeah. So it's
really
not
cool.
exactly very sanitary. You spend a lot of time on these trips licking things, licking your finger and sticking. What's that, Rhonda?
You have
we should probably save it for the left hand.
Yeah.
But it is pretty fun, and once you kind of, like Shawn said, it's super effective. So it's kind of neat when you're in this area. Oh, you know, that must be cow. Oh, that's dinosaur. So
Well, I think my method would work, because if it sticks to your teeth, it's a dinosaur, right?
yeah, that could work too.
Rhonda would like to intervene from a dental office perspective.
Oh, no. Yes, teeth are not tools, Gord.
Yeah. This is, again, still from the Red Deer River. This is, Haley, is this the first tooth you found? The first and only tooth. Okay. Well, anyway, the teeth are a real treasure. So we're always excited when we come across a dinosaur tooth. Sean thought we better throw this in for Gord because, you know, I think sometimes if there aren't trees, right? Sometimes it's like, what's the point? Well, there were trees, Gord. There were trees. This is a great big fossilized, or sorry, it's a petrified wood.
Yeah, some nice shade there for sure.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Lake shade.
Sorry, I think I got ahead, and I think Sean's supposed to be doing the talking. So, can anybody here find the tooth? I don't know how big your screen is here, but
I can.
Yeah, in the middle.
Yeah, yes.
yeah, you can see it. Okay.
This, while we're on this is one of these experiences that is surprisingly common. There's just so much there.
Oh.
And I stopped, I was actually looking at the toe bone, which is closer to my my walking stick there. It's a toe bone from either a duckbill or a horned dinosaur. And I was there probably for 2 or 3 minutes looking around and until I saw the tooth. So again, there's just so much detail on the ground. It's part of the fun.
Wow.
And then for those of you who consider bison an essential aesthetic in your home, we like us, we have many bison skulls. It's a good place to pick up some home decor. Sorry, Sean, you continue.
Yeah, every trip just has unexpected highlights, and our trip in August 2020 was Avon's birthday, and lo and behold, along the river we found birthday balloons and a little gift of a sweetgrass and sage bundle. So it was a really neat experience for her. It's like, really, way out here you find this on the very day. And she also found the biggest tooth I've seen in the field and outside of a museum, and it's deteriorated like a lot of them are. Yeah. Next.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there it is here. Yeah.
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 Like a lot of them are, but just spectacular in terms of size. And again, this was the sort of apex predator of the day. It's probably Gorgosaurus, which is in the Tyrannosaurus family, and this is similar to T-Rex. It's a little bit smaller and it's older, so an older relative. T-Rex didn't show up for a number of million years later, but very similar in terms of lifestyle, role in the ecology, and their teeth.
You can see the serrated edge on it.
Yeah.
Kinda cool.
Even said to remind us that it's 3 inches. So it's a good one.
And when we find cast off teeth like this, those were broken off in feeding, which is kind of neat because when paleontologists find a skull, you get the full root, that sort of thing. So these are teeth that sort of crunched off in the act of attacking something or feeding on something, and teeth grow in to replace it. So it's kind of neat that way.
This is just a quick little story, I suppose, also on the Red Deer River. So in 2009, this is before we had kids, Sean and I thought we would organize a little trip on the Red Deer with some folks here from Jasper. So we sort of put up this Badlands Beach Ball Red Deer River poster. We didn't put it up, we sent it out. I thought, we'll get just a couple families together to go on this trip, and ended up having a rather large uptake. We had, I think I was counting and thinking there's a whole bunch of people that weren't in this photo, but there was over 30 folks that came. So we were 3 days on the river. Quite epic in terms of logistics, but also this was August 2009. And our second night, Shawn and I went up and did this hike from where we were camping, and you can see these big clouds building in the distance. And I think we probably didn't think much about it, but because it was sort of south of us and didn't really get ourselves too concerned. But as it turned out, that was the same weekend of the Big Valley Jamboree. I don't know if you guys know about that. Essentially, there was a big storm and a tornado, and this is what happened in this case was the main stage collapsed. There was 15 people injured. Somebody died, and we were just not too far away, and basically had a similar experience. So we were down at the beach, having our cocktail, and I remember looking down river and seeing this sort of tunnel cloud basically, with sand whipping up, and thinking, wow, that's really cool. That's really beautiful. And then realizing, oh my Lord, that's coming straight toward us. And within a matter of just a couple minutes, you know, our canoes that weren't tied, I think ours was the only one tied, were flying around. My friend broke her finger. She was trying to catch a canoe. All the parents are getting their kids in the tents. The tents were flattened. There was only 2 tents that survived that night. One tent had blew into the river. You know, everything was going everywhere. It was actually pretty terrifying. And I thought it was funny. A few years later, we bought a book called Prairie Paddling, and there's a little excerpt in it. I won't read it all, but the guy's talking about he and his wife were on the river on that same weekend, and he's talking about his experience. And he says, as he goes down, where is he? He's got it in here. We thought it was funny when we read this. You know, let's see, I should have.
One of a large group of canoeists with young kids.
Yeah, there he goes. We thought about the large group of canoeists with young kids that we had passed exhausted, or we had passed earlier in the day. And so we thought that was pretty funny, because that would have been our group. And then this is the next night. There was also thunder and lightning the next night, and you can see this big sort of cloud building up. But what was interesting, again, the takeaway, this is also our last night, and the kids are all, you know, doing their s'mores and roasting marshmallows. But the 2 sort of takeaways from that experience is everybody went home. There was only 2 tents that survived. Ours was luckily one of them. So everybody bought new wind sturdy tents, and the families of those kids, I know for years and years after, would basically, anytime they left the town of Jasper, they would have asked their parents, you know, will there be storms? Will there be storms? They were always really, I don't like to use the word traumatized, but I think probably that would be the appropriate word their parents use. Yeah, exactly. But you know, it brought us all together. It was good adventure, some good stories. And so we'll move on from the Red Deer River.
Yeah, I'll probably move relatively quicker through this. The South Saskatchewan in many respects is similar to the Red Deer, except it has maybe a little more, it has badlands as well and dinosaur deposits, but not as much. A little more of a prairie and canyon feel. The bottom more cobbly. Whoops, there's a quick shot of the 2
nice
segments we've done. I think I've been on this river probably 3 or 4, probably 4 times. When you're in luck, we'll touch on wind, I think, through all these presentations, because it's a bit of a factor in traveling, but it's when it goes your way, it really goes your way, and you can make astonishing miles at a pretty good speed. On this trip, we did about 40 kilometers a day, which isn't big distance per se. You know, you can do a lot more than that, but that does take a chunk of the day at around 6 or 7 kilometers an hour, and you want to leave adequate time for exploring the various coulees, that sort of thing. So it's always a factor of planning a trip, and how long do you want to spend, and make sure you're thinking about both distance you want to travel and how much hiking you want to do. So again, another group. This is basically the same group, I think, that we did our very first 2000. So on to the Milk River.
Yeah. So again, we're still in southern Alberta here. This is the Milk River. What we like about this is part of the Missouri-Mississippi system, and it drains into the Gulf of Mexico. Goes through Writing on Stone Provincial Park, which is a really, really gorgeous spot. There's lots of these sweetgrass hills, hoodoos, canyons, barren lands. It's memorable for swallows and falcons, and again, some of the best examples of native grasslands in Alberta. There's a trip from, we don't know, 2000 something, and just again all those bank swallows, which is really, really kind of cool. Super lonely country. It was often sparsely settled and kind of unsuccessful settling. So this is some of the history part. Another little pop quiz. This remote watershed was home to the Blackfoot First Nation, has been governed by 5 colonial nations and 1 corporation. Can we name them? Can we name any of them?
I'll head Paul off and say the corporation isn't Monsanto, so we'll eliminate that.
Bay Company.
I guess.
Yeah, Hudson's Bay. Yeah, absolutely. So that's 1.
England, France, Spain, Portugal. What else we got?
I think Portugal, no,
No.
No?
but you got England,
Yeah,
France,
good run.
Spain. I
Russia?
think, and the US. Yeah.
Okay.
Written, okay.
Yeah, it kind of went from France to Spain to France again to the US to Britain, Hudson's Bay Company, and then Canada.
We thought Phoebe and Piper might be on the call, so this was sort of thrown in for a social studies perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I always love this shot. I think it's, anyway, I just find this so sort of representative of the Milk River, these big, beautiful, green, grassy hills.
In that yellow sandstone there of interest are marmots, which is kind of interesting. There's a little isolated colony of, are they
Yellow-bellied marmots?
Yellow-bellied
yeah.
marmots.
Yeah. Very short story. Maybe I'll really keep this tight. But the first time we went on the Milk River, we started at the town of Milk River, and right off the bat, we ended up having this dog in the lower left-hand corner, just start following us. So she was basically running along the side of the shore, and then she'd sometimes swim across the river and run along the other side of the shore. But we thought, oh my God, obviously we'll lose this dog eventually, but no, she basically, kept up with us for the entire day. And that night she camped with us. And then I think it was the next day we had to stop at another little sort of pull out. And ironically, we picked up a puppy, so this sort of border collie puppy. Oh my God. And this border collie puppy joined the group, and this border collie wasn't nearly as sort of independent. This other dog, who we ended up learning her name was Winnie, was pretty cool. Like, she was sort of with us, but she wasn't with us. Like, she was sort of doing her own thing, but we were kind of together a little bit. Like, so she would come and she wouldn't beg any food. We tried to feed her, and she would take our food, but she didn't beg at all. And she would sort of sleep, a couple meters away from the tent. Whereas the puppy wanted to be, in the canoe with us, and when, was always begging for food and wanted to sleep in the tent with us. And we thought, man, we didn't want anything to do with these dogs because they weren't our dogs, and we didn't know what to do with them. We eventually contacted the owner of this Winnie, and she came and picked it up. And it was funny, Winnie had this real grizzled sort of hair. And we thought, oh, this is an ancient dog, It turned out she was only a few years old, and the owner's like, oh yeah, this is her third trip this year on the Milk, so she just basically would, join any passerbys in their canoe and go for this trip. So that was pretty funny. And then the other little dog, we did end up basically bringing her into the canoe because we were worried she was going to drown. And it was so frustrating at one point. She's a pretty cute dog. We definitely, liked her. But at one point we ended up seeing a bobcat along the side of the rivers, the one and only bobcat I've ever seen in my life. And so we were super excited to see this bobcat. So we pulled over and, get out the binoculars, and we're sort of creeping along, trying to get closer and closer. And then the dog caught sight of the bobcat, and that was the end of that. So we were pretty frustrated to lose our opportunity there for a good photo. But anyway, when we made it to Writing on Stone, this is Writing on Stone, we tied up that dog. And when we came back to pick her up, and sort of, again, we were trying to figure out what to do with her, she'd chewed through the rope and was long gone, stealing hot dogs and marshmallows through the campground. We heard as we were leaving, somebody told us the next day, oh, we mentioned, hey, we had this dog here and didn't see what had happened to her. And the woman said, oh yeah, that dog's just been a real pain. She's been all over the campground, stealing people's hot dogs. So this is where we end on the Writing on Stone, and pretty neat place with beautiful petroglyphs. Another pop quiz.
I'm just going to comment. One thing that's neat about the petroglyphs on at Writing on Stone, they go back a couple hundred years, but you can sort of track the arrival of the gun, the arrival of the horse, and things that went on previously when people just traveled with dogs and that sort of thing. There's pictures of battles. It's just a fascinating place.
Yeah. So the Milk River was given its English name by this is multiple choice, so that's good. The Palliser Expedition, the Hudson's Bay Company, Lewis and Clark, or Sir John A. Macdonald. Any ideas?
No, it's not Sir John A.
Yeah.
I take B, Hudson's Bay Company.
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark.
Lewis and Clark, Gord?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Palliser
Yeah.
was farther north.
Yeah, you got it. Lewis and Clark it is. Nice work. So now we're leaving Southern Alberta. We will pick up the pace a bit here. So I think this is you. Is that you, Shawn?
Yeah, I've wanted to do the Missouri River for years. It's a big river south of where I grew up in southern Saskatchewan and plays big in terms of history of the area. So our plan essentially was to, or I should say, my plan was to do an 8-day trip, about 240 kilometers from Fort Benton to Kip Recreation Area. It was a little later in the season. I think it was about an October 4 start, which is getting a little late, but the weather was still reasonable. And interestingly, there's going to be a solo trip, and Jen decided essentially on departure day that, hey, she'd love to go too. So she phoned her boss, and in probably around 2 hours, she had gathered her kit together, and we got a little more food, and away we went.
Yeah. We might have too many pop quizzes.
Jason and Jessica.
Nice one, Jason and Jessica's wedding. Yep, so this was just after that. Good job.
Hey, listen, you're not going to be allowed to do this again if you're going to start asking questions.
Yeah.
Welcome to the call, Uncle Donnie.
Yeah, Donnie.
Part of our plan.
Yeah, that's right.
Donnie, you have to flip your camera around. All we see is some leopard leopards.
Oh, that's. I was wondering who's leopard print pants.
Technology challenge here. It's taking me half an hour to get my microphone turned on.
For the fish appreciators in the crowd, there's some interesting fish in the Missouri system, including right where we are. There's sturgeon, which of course is quite familiar to others. But there's gar, which is kind of pike-like, and paddlefish, which is the fish that has a long snout that looks kind of like a chainsaw blade. So some really interesting things going on there ecologically. One of our highlights is talking to Americans. And you wouldn't necessarily think there'd be a lot of difference between southern Alberta, rural southern Alberta, and rural northern Montana. There's a lot of similarities, but who boy, are there some differences? And we may elaborate if we have time. So some of the highlights is hiking these white sandstone canyons, sort of deeply cut little areas, camping in cottonwoods at times, and too, we had a windy night. Here's our next pop quiz, a bit long-winded, but this one's of interest because it doesn't grow in Alberta except in the very, very corner, again, along the Milk River. So it's sort of a northern plains species of very dry country, long, thin, sword-shaped leaves, pollinated by moths.
Any ideas there?
Yucca. Yucca.
Nice one, Gord. Yucca. Okay.
Oh, wow. Looks like a yucca. Cool.
Yeah. I think we'll just keep moving through here. There's just some examples again of the landscape.
And like a lot of rural country, some interesting settler history, but some field history as well. Often the early ranches of the day were on the same places where indigenous people camped. So there's interesting sort of layers there, often of teepee rings and cultural features, and then later ranch features. So the Missouri River was a major transportation route I mentioned. Sort of from a personal perspective, growing up in southern Saskatchewan in the Cypress Hills, a lot of the early ranches of the day, again, talking the late 1880s, or pardon me, early 1880s, late 1870s, they actually got all their freight from Montana through the Missouri system until the railway came through in 1883. So there were strong north-south connections among the ranching community. And when the Northwest Mounted Police came, they had to get their mail this way from Fort Benton down in Montana. So there's strong sense of connection for where I live. And this particular story, hopefully you've read it by now, famous battle down south on a tributary of the Missouri River in 1876. They evacuated injured soldiers and one horse from there on a riverboat that they had leased for the purposes of supporting this expedition. So just, again, another fun trivia. Any guesses?
Little Bighorn.
1876.
Little Bighorn.
Little Bighorn, yeah. Battle of Little Bighorn, yeah.
Excellent. We're just a little, we're past our halfway point in our trip, and the weather really started to deteriorate. And hit the next one, Jen.
Yeah.
This is our last night on the river. We took advantage of one of the shelters. You know, you're in windy country when they put up a shelter like this, obviously with the back wall facing the prevailing wind and open at the front. That was a nice shelter. Jen's obviously got on all of her layers at this time. And the next morning, oh, we took out a picture.
Oh, wow.
Sorry,
we did.
we made a dawn start, which is unusual for us, but we were essentially packed up on the go in the dark to make some miles. We got to Judith Landing and did a little bit of pacing and thinking and just decided to pull the pin. The weather was, we didn't have the benefit of the forecast you can get so handily these days. There's no cell coverage, but it was cold and windy and not looking good. So we decided to take out, which led to an interesting chain of events of walking to the nearest ranch and borrowing a phone there, then getting, that individual couldn't help us out, but she phoned a neighbor who showed up late afternoon, and they had an old beat up blazer with a broken roof rack, but the guy knew what he was doing. He tied on the canoe nice and tight, and we made our way. It was about I think a 250 kilometer round trip to get to where our car was downstream. You know, it was only about 90 kilometers left on the river, but there's so few roads down there. So we had a bit of we took the shorter route through the Missouri River Breaks, which is dirt roads, and he's sort of hoping it was passable. Our driver had a 6-pack on his lap the whole time that he's working his way through. At one time we passed these interesting sites that in Alberta would look sort of like a well pad. And he said, "Don't get out your camera here." And they were Minuteman missile sites, which they like to place in remote areas like that for in event of needing them for nuclear warfare. So it was a fascinating ride. I'll turn it over to Jen.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was just, yeah, really interesting. The guy had, I wish we could do better. We're not great with accents, but he certainly, yeah, we were a little nervous for sure getting in the vehicle with this guy, but that was our only option. And he was really humming and hawing about how we were going to get back to our vehicle, right? He wasn't sure, and he kept talking about this other road that was shorter. But he said, he was talking about the gumbo. Don't know if we can make it because of the gumbo, and on about the gumbo, which I think is just these sort of really slick, muddy clay type layer. So that didn't inspire a lot of confidence, but we did make it back. And then when we got there, we were trying to pay him, and we were just short about 40 bucks American. So we had a bunch of Canadian cash, and we went into a little tiny garage, I guess, or a gas station. And it had, I think there was about 3 or 4 Americans just trying to figure out what to do with this Canadian money. We basically just wanted to figure out the exchange rate. And everybody was scratching their head, and what do you do with this, and what's this, and what's the going rate, and couldn't figure it out, and it was totally useless. And in the end, we were willing to give him whatever he wanted in Canadian money, but it was just, utterly uninterested.
Monopoly money.
No use, exactly, no use for our money. So
it was a huge consolation, I think, getting that ride and spending a couple hours with those folks that we wouldn't have had otherwise. They're interesting people. They essentially lived, I think, off the grid, definitely below the government horizon. Between the two of them, they shot all the meat they ate. I suppose the odd cow and grew vegetables. Just really, really interesting slice of American culture.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll try to keep going faster here. Green River, 2002. This is in Utah. We did a trip there, 185 kilometers on the river, 9 days. And you go to, you end up pulling out around Moab. It's a real classic paddle. So the attraction here is, Canyonlands, labyrinth and Stillwater canyons, warm, high desert climate, lots of wilderness, excellent hiking, rock art and cliff dwellings. And it was kind of a must see on our list, a place we actually tried to go back there when Avon was, I think 1. We had a trip planned and we loaded up all our canoe, all our food, and our daughter, who was sick at the time. I think she had some kind of, I can't remember what she had, but but we thought, she could be sick at home or she could be sick on the river. And we drove almost all the way down, and she just wasn't getting any better. And we thought probably a 9-day trip with a really sick 1-year-old was a bad idea. So then we just basically took our canoe for a 3,000-kilometer drive. These are I'm just going to flip through these, I think, quickly, because this is, we're getting long here. But this is just to give you a sense of the river. This is one of our campsites. I remember this location. It's a real prime spot to canoe. And so camping locations can be really at a premium. We got this place probably earlier in the day, and we were all set up cooking here on the shore. And I remember, I think it was about 18 canoes came by, and the first canoe sort of looked at us, and you could hear them talking to the canoe behind and quietly said, "Isn't this where we were supposed to camp?" And the canoe, yeah, it was. Keep going. And so this huge sort of entourage of 18 canoes passed us. And the next day, as we were leaving, we ended up seeing where they had camped, and they had literally had to set up a pulley system. So they camped down on the river, but they had this pulley system for their gear to get them up to a higher ground for camping. So it's a pretty competitive place. Another pop quiz. So there's a Rat River name for this famous device. Dad.
A groover.
It's a groover. Yeah. Yep. So this is one of these places where you have to it's leave no trace. So you pack in and pack out all your waste, including your human waste.
This is a big thing to fit in your canoe if you're not used to it, but you really appreciate the sturdiness of this aluminum vault with all the dogs and that sort of thing. Like if you're carrying your accumulated waste for 9 days in very hot country, it's a really well designed and essential piece of equipment.
Yeah. So again, I'll flip through some of these. This is just one of the things, we came to realize on this trip is it can be incredibly windy, which is pretty dispiriting. We had a couple of days of extremely strong headwinds, and this is just basically taking a break in the.
I'm just going to comment here, Jen, that this is something we don't do particularly well. A lot of our trips, particularly when we're both working, you're working on a schedule, you got 5 days to do something, you pack it in. And if you read a lot of sort of traveler journals, particularly people doing longer trips, I think you get more in the groove and do the smart thing. And there's times you can't travel or you shouldn't travel, and you just stop and wait it out. And this was a good reminder. And on this trip, we did have that kind of time, and we were into the landscape and what was going on. So we couldn't make any progress upstream. There was standing waves on what would otherwise be a flat river because of the wind blowing upstream. And we just chilled out. And I try to remind myself of that, because we sometimes on shorter trips, you get some adversity, you just try to work harder and paddle through it. And it's nice when you don't have to do that.
Okay, we're getting close to the end there. Stick with us. You're doing it. We're almost there.
Erin's going to be across Manitoba pretty soon.
Yeah. So we're making our way back home now. We're back towards the Athabasca, and this is one thing I always love, which we used to do a little bit before there was 4 of us. When there was just 2 of us, it was easier to manage. But we would frequently just walk our canoe down to the river. It's about maybe 4K. And then this is just little samples of various trips that we've done on the Athabasca. This was Father's Day one year in Avon, paddling. Yep. We also have we have a whitewater canoe called a soar. And so we take that out every now and again and do the bigger sections of the Athabasca. So you can kind of do the big money runs that the rafting companies do. I'm always frustrated because our pictures on these look super flat water, but of course, when you're in the big water and the water's coming over your head, you don't have the opportunity to actually take out any photos of that. So that's, anyway, it's a really fun boat and lets us do some bigger water, but with lots of confidence. And yeah, I think we'll just keep moving along here. So in closing, we just thought we'd share this. We had a whole section on gear and tips, and we nixed that because it was getting way too long, but we did keep this one in. Edward Abbey is one of Shawn's favorite writers, and I appreciate him as well. And so we thought there was something to be said for this. He's got this. This is his perspective. He says, "My motto is to be prepared, but I tend to go off in more or less random direction, half baked, half assed, half cocked, and half ripped. Why? Because I have a lazy and melancholy nature and can't be bothered to get together all that bloody gear, maps, compass, binoculars, poncho, pup tent, shoes, first aid kit, rope, flashlight, inspirational poetry, water, food. Later and deep into my trip, I may wish I had packed that something extra, matches perhaps, or maybe a spoon to eat my gruel with." And we ourselves tend to be more, we're not very Edward Abbey. We pack it all right from the beginning. So we always have the spoon and lots of extra stuff. Something there about group dynamics. You know, one thing I touched on the big trip we had on the Red Deer River with 30 plus people, but generally we find it works well to have a maximum of 3 or 4 boats, just given kind of the experience that you're after and the you know, the beaches that you're going to be camping on. But what's more important, I think, is this little group dynamic cartoon. So which is more important? Asked Big Panda, the journey or the destination? And the tiny dragon says the company. So we always find good company on these trips. And that's it. That's it for us. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We're now open to questions or not. That's fine too.
Thanks, Jen. Great show.
What an incredible amount of effort that you put into this. So thanks for making it happen. Over to you, Uncle Gord. You had a question?
No, I just said thanks. Great show. Hi, Annie Helen. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got a dash. We're heading over to Gabriola. So see you
Yeah.
all again soon. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks,
All
Gord.
right.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Yeah,
pretty
wonderful.
amazing.
Thanks, Aaron. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm sorry
Mike.
I didn't participate in the skill testing questions, but I'm still just learning names. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Well, it's great to see everybody. You all look amazing. Everyone have a great time. Sorry, that's my dog.
Okay. I just got one comment. I'm just really glad that I did my presentation before yours.
Great. Yeah.
Any questions for Jen?
I think just like
family?
I just had one point I love is just like, yeah, taking the time to actually maybe sit and wait out a storm and not power through. I feel like it's very Dubois just to like go in, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna keep going. So it's just a nice reminder to just like let's just sit and like chill and then like, you know, go back at it maybe when it makes more sense. So
We're not very good at that. Grandpa had a nickname of Tide Bucking Bill, wasn't that right?
One of my ex-girlfriends one time asked Wendy if Jeff also speeds up for stop signs.
There you go.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Yeah.
Jennifer and Shawn, thank you so much. That I can see that was a lot of hours and a lot of work you guys put in to share this with us, and that was much appreciated. That was really, really a cool presentation. We really appreciate it.
Makes me want to go on a trip.
What's that, Astrid?
I said it makes me want to go and do a trip. I really want to like look for fossils and stuff. That must be just so exciting.
Why would you want to do a trip when they just did a bunch for us?
I can't believe how many you guys have done. Like you guys have done so many trips. Like that is it's pretty amazing, pretty inspiring just to see how many trips you guys have.
Is it one a year, or how did you fit so many in?
On a year, no.
We've probably done a few a year for, you know, maybe I don't know, 10 years, well, more than 10 years, probably about 16, 17, 18 years, something like that. So we culled, so believe it or not, and that's good. It wasn't intended to be a everything type of, yeah, actually it was really nice for us. It was a lot of work because we had to go through all these photos, but it was great for us to do that. And it was a nice exercise for where are all those photos and where's this and where's that. And yeah, having an opportunity to kind of go through and cast back. So
on memory lane, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I was frustrated. I mean, I had some great shots of Gord up here. I couldn't find those ones. Like, it was very annoying for looking at photos. I had he came and did a trip in May years ago, and but I just couldn't put my fingers on those pictures, but tried to include.
It would be. You guys are just curious. Have you ever calculated how many kilometers you've canoed on camping trips? That would be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it would, Jeff, and I haven't done it, but I do have a list. I started a list a number of years ago, and I still need to update it, but I'm sort of keeping it up to date, and it wouldn't be hard to pull that together.
Yeah, that would be
kind of. We've done, say, a lot of weekend trips on the Athabasca River where we jump in here and go downstream, you know, a ways or even past the next town kind of thing, but kind of poorly documented other than wading through our pictures.
Just Jeff, can you maybe leave the pop quizzes to Jen and Shawn?
Yes. Pop quiz to Jen and Shawn. And how many kilometers have they gone upstream? I bet he can tell us that. 0.
Yeah, that's Shawn does that frequently on his solo trips. He likes to paddle downstream and then paddle back upstream.
Ava and Haley, how do you feel about all these canoe adventures? Do you enjoy them?
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 3, how much do you enjoy canoeing?
3.
Right?
I only heard one answer there.
Okay, nice. 3 out of 3. Nice. And how about Sasha? We didn't get any shots for Sasha. How does
Sasha? She probably featured prominently in our pictures too. She's a great paddle. She's a great paddle dog.
Yeah.
That's one of the only times
she's in the right, as long as she's in the right canoe.
That's true. Yeah, she's got to be in the lead canoe. That's true.
Right canoe.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm gonna take off here, but just to reiterate what Daniel said earlier, thank you so much for supporting James, you guys. It's a pretty troubling time that I only have secondhand news of it. James and I obviously aren't the best of friends, but you all support him is pretty amazing to me. So thank you very much.
Okay, just before you go, Aaron. I hope you're not driving.
No, I'm not driving. The dog is. No, we're good. Get out of the way. I'm on a family call. Get out of the way. Okay, guys.
Starting to sound like Jeff now.
Aaron used to pretend to have a heart attack when he was driving with me next to him, and he just punched the gas and fully collapsed on my lap, eyes closed. And I'm 12 years old having to jump over and start trying to drive through intersections of Richmond. Anyways, you guys, this was awesome. Thanks so much, Jen and Shawn, and everyone enjoy your Halloween. And if you do dress up, make sure to send photos. All right.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks for organizing, and nice to see everybody.
Thanks a lot. Nice to see you, Helen.
Lots of love. Bye for now.